everyone. The piece that I decided to write about is called The Sloth by Christman on page 55. There is a nothingness of temperature, a point on the body's mercury where our blood feels neither hot nor cold. I remember a morning swim on the black sand eastern coast of Costa Rica 4 months after my 22-year-old fiancé was killed in a car accident. Walking into the sea, disembodied by grief, I felt no barriers between my skin, the air, and the water. So one of the reasons why I chose this essay is that the title just sort of brought me in. I think sloths are cute, and I was interested to see what this essay was about. And then also the length of it kind of drew me in. I feel like I like shorter essays more because I think when the essay is shorter, every sentence and every word that the author chooses is that much more important because they have a shorter time, a shorter amount of words to get their point across. So I think they have to choose those words with more precision, which is the first creative decision that I think this author made. That was a good choice, was keeping the essay so short. As I mentioned, she did a really good job of choosing those words carefully to make sure that she got her point across in such a short essay. The essay itself, because it's slow, I feel like it also reads slower. I think with longer essays, we tend to read through it faster and maybe skip over parts or skim them, but with shorter essays, you can really take your time going through it. So that sort of plays into the theme of slowness and sloth that she tries to get across here. And her tone that she uses also helps with this theme of slowness because she uses phrases that sort of drag on and just read slowly, such as, I thought I knew slow, but this guy was slow. And she also says, I watched the sloth move in the shadows of the canopy, still reaching, and then still reaching. So these phrases they just give off slow vibes, if that makes sense. They kind of take a minute to say, and they sort of drag on a little bit. So another creative decision the author made is the use of simile. Sort of the whole essay is based on the simile, the line that the sloth is as slow as grief. So her whole point really is to make the connection between grief being really slow in this world where everything is always super fast and the slowness of the sloth. She also does a great job of using descriptive words and descriptive language, especially as she's describing her grief. She sort of describes it in more of a physical way rather than emotional, which I thought was interesting because she says, no barriers between my skin, the air, and the water. So I thought it was a good choice that she sort of distances herself from the emotional aspects of her grief and sort of makes the essay focus more on the nature of grief, I guess. Okay. So she also uses descriptive language to describe the sloth. Mottled and filthy, he hung by his meat hook claws not 5 feet above my head in the Cecropia tree. I don't know if I said that right. But yeah, as I said, the essay is really short, so her word choice is really important. So I think she did a really great job of using imagery and descriptive words so that the reader can really clearly picture the scenes and images that she's describing. So I thought that was good. She also uses words and phrases that fit in with the theme of grievance, such as nothingness, sad head, and disembodied. So just overall, I thought her word choice was really good. Finally, I thought the way she structured the piece was really great. She made the decision not to start the piece off talking about her fiance's death, which I think she did intentionally, like I kind of mentioned earlier, to sort of separate herself from that. She actually starts off the piece with a fact about temperature, which is interesting because she also ends it with temperature, so we kind of come full circle by the time we get to the end of the essay. But at the end of it, we have sort of like that idea of temperature has a much bigger meaning, and there's a lot more to it than when she first mentions it, which I think is really interesting. Again, with the line about her fiance, so she doesn't start the essay with it, she kind of just throws it in there super quickly in the middle of the first paragraph, which I think speaks more to her bigger point about how pretty much everything in this world moves super, super quickly. Like, you know, all of a sudden her fiance was there, and then in the blink of an eye, you know, he was gone. And so she kind of just throws that information in there like that, to sort of prove that things like that they happen so quickly. And then there's things like grief that sort of are so slow and just drag on. So I think that was definitely intentional, and I think that was a good creative choice by her. So yeah, that sort of made the less introspective about her own experience with grief and more about the nature of grief itself and like the slowness of grief. So on a smaller scale, this essay is about the author's first encounter with a sloth in Costa Rica 4 months after her fiance's death. And on a larger scale, this essay is really about the nature of grief and how everything in this world moves super quickly except for grief. So, my question for you all is, I'm sure most people know, but if you haven't heard the 5 stages of grief, they are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So my question is, which of those stages do you think is the slowest? So I know it probably depends from person to person, but in your opinion, which stage do you think yourself or people would normally spend the most time in? Like which stage of grief is really the slowest? And then my writing prompt is write about a time when you felt grief. What were you grieving about? How did you feel physically? How did you feel mentally? Anything like that. You can write it in a similar style to this essay. You can also, if you want to, create a little simile like the author did. Hers was, that sloth is as slow as grief. So if you want to come up with something like that, that would be great. So yeah, thank you for listening to me. I hope everyone has a great weekend, or if you're watching this on Sunday, I hope you had a great weekend. So yeah.